Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained is filled with unforgettable moments, but one scene, in particular, stands out as a masterclass in building tension. Calvin Candie's skull monologue. This scene, set during an elaborate dinner at Candyland, isn't just a conversation. It's a calculated psychological battle, where words hold as much weight as bullets.
It looks like this pony's got big eyes for Django.
But what makes it so effective? Why does it leave audiences gripping their seats, fully aware that something terrible is about to unfold, yet unable to look away? To understand why this scene is so gripping, we need to break down its foundation. The setting, the players involved, and the stakes at hand. Tarantino meticulously crafts an environment where power dynamics, unspoken threats, and a clash of motivations create an atmosphere so thick with tension that it feels suffocating. Django and Dr. King Schultz enter Candyland under the guise of wealthy men looking to purchase a Mandingo fighter.
Why do you want to get in the Mandingo business?
You don't intend to allow your second to make the proper introductions?
Quit stalling now. Answer the question.
The awful truth? I'm bored.
But their real mission is much more personal. They aim to rescue Django's wife, Broomhilda, who is enslaved at the plantation. This deception places them in immediate danger, as Candie, a ruthless and unpredictable man, holds absolute control over his domain.
Adult supervision is required.
Any slip-up, any hint of dishonesty, could mean death. The dramatic irony is key here. The audience is well aware of Django and Schultz's true motives.
You silver-tongued devil, you.
Which makes every interaction with Candie nerve-wracking. It's a delicate balancing act. How long can they keep up the act before Candie's suspicions turn into something more dangerous? At the dinner table, power isn't just about status, it's about perception. Candie, as the plantation owner, commands authority and intimidation. He thrives on making his guests uncomfortable.
No. Steven's right. You might find this interesting. Hildy, go on, take off your dress. Show Dr. Schultz her back here. Go on.
Knowing that in his home, he has the final say on what happens.
Take her out. Why? Because I said so. That's why.
Dr. Schultz, while posing as a business associate, harbors deep hatred for Candie's values, but must suppress it to maintain the ruse. Django, on the other hand, keeps a steely resolve, playing his role as a dispassionate buyer while internally restraining his personal stake in the mission. And then there's Steven, Candie's head house slave. He may outwardly appear to be just another servant.
Yes, sir, Monsieur Candie.
But in reality, he's the most observant and manipulative figure in the room. Steven begins piecing together the real reason for Django and Schultz's presence, making him a wild card in an already volatile situation.
You know that, don't you? Don't fool me. You know what I'm talking about.
The grandeur of the dinner serves as a stark contrast to the impending danger. The elegant table setting, the luxurious feast, it all masks the brutality that lurks beneath the surface. Tarantino structures this moment to feel almost ritualistic, akin to a Last Supper before the inevitable eruption of violence.
Lay your palm flat on that tabletop.
It's not just a meal. It's a stage where Tarantino tightens the tension with every passing second. Each exchange, each lingering glance, each forced smile contributes to an overarching sense of unease. The scene doesn't rely on immediate action to create suspense. It simmers, waiting for the precise moment to explode. What makes this scene so effective is how Tarantino makes the audience hyper-aware of the danger, even before anything overtly violent happens. We know Candie is suspicious. We know Steven is catching on.
Yeah, Hildy. Her and Django, them know each other.
We know Django and Schultz are treading on thin ice. The question isn't if things will go wrong, it's when. And in classic Tarantino fashion, the inevitable explosion of violence isn't sudden, it's earned. Every spoken word, every tense pause, every moment of forced civility is leading us toward the breaking point. Tarantino doesn't just use action to create suspense, he weaponizes words.
I only had one question. Why don't they kill us?
In this scene, Calvin Candie's monologue is the perfect example of how dialogue alone can establish control, instill fear, and escalate tension to an unbearable degree. Every sentence he speaks drags the scene closer to its breaking point.
And here. Now, if I was holding the skull of an Isaac Newton or Galileo, these three dimples would be found in the area of the skull most associated with creativity. But there's the skull of old Ben. And in the skull of old Ben, unburdened by genius, these three dimples exist in the area of the skull most associated with civility.
Candie's monologue is designed to psychologically dominate his guests. He speaks of phrenology, a debunked pseudoscience used historically to justify racism, presenting the skull of an enslaved man as proof of inherent servitude. This grotesque display isn't just about asserting his supposed intellectual superiority, it's about humiliating Django and Schultz while reinforcing his own authority. Leonardo DiCaprio's performance is a masterclass in control. He speaks slowly, methodically, letting every word settle uncomfortably in the room. His deliberate pacing prolongs the agony, forcing the audience to hang on his every syllable. Candie rarely looks away. His piercing stare, shifting between Schultz and Django, ensures that he remains the dominant force in the scene. His body language exudes confidence, but his unpredictability keeps everyone on edge. At key moments, Candie explodes in bursts of rage, slamming his hand, raising his voice, only to immediately return to a composed demeanor. This erratic behavior makes him even more dangerous. We don't know when or how he will strike. While Candie monologues, Tarantino strategically cuts to Schultz and Django, using silence to speak volumes about their mental states. One of Tarantino's greatest strengths is his ability to integrate real-world history into his fiction. By having Candie use phrenology, Tarantino demonstrates how scientific rhetoric was historically weaponized to justify oppression. The fact that Candie delivers this speech with such conviction, despite its complete lack of validity, makes it even more chilling. It's not just evil, it's systemic, ingrained in the fabric of society and used to manipulate those around him. This monologue isn't just an exposition dump, it's a slow, methodical breakdown of dominance. It makes the audience feel trapped in the room with Candie, helplessly witnessing his psychological games unfold. And with every passing second, we feel the noose tightening around Django and Schultz. Tarantino doesn't just rely on dialogue to create tension, he enhances it through meticulous cinematography, sound design, and lighting. Every technical aspect of this scene contributes to the growing unease, making the audience feel just as trapped as Django and Schultz. The eerie silence makes every small movement feel deafening. Candie's voice dominates, with no musical score to break the tension.
Been a lot of lies said around this dinner table here tonight, but that you can't believe.
The moment everything changes comes when Candie smashes a glass in his bare hand, cutting himself in real life. Instead of breaking character, DiCaprio uses the injury to elevate the scene, wiping his real blood on Broomhilda's face, making for one of the most unsettling and dominant displays in Tarantino's entire filmography. The blood smear wasn't planned, making the horror in the actor's reactions completely genuine. Candie forces Schultz into an impossible position, demanding he shake his bloodied hand as a sign of submission.
Your deal ain't done until the two parties have shook hands. Even after all that paper signing don't mean you don't shake my hand.
If I don't shake your hand, you gonna throw away $12,000? I don't think so.
Schultz, after suppressing his disgust for the entire scene, finally breaks, pulling out his gun and shooting Candie dead. Tarantino stretches suspense to its breaking point, making the final explosion of violence feel both inevitable and shocking. Most of the tension is driven not by action, but by power, plays in dialogue and setting. Once violence erupts, it's not just cathartic, it's a seismic shift that forever alters the trajectory of the film. This scene encapsulates everything Tarantino does best: masterful dialogue, unbearable tension, and explosive, unforgettable payoffs. It's a moment that lingers long after the credits roll, proving why Django Unchained remains one of his most thrilling cinematic achievements.